As I said at the beginning of Mass, today we come to the end of the church calendar and we celebrate the great solemnity of Christ the King. Because next Sunday we'll usher in the new church year with the season of Advent. And as this is the end of the church year, we are also coming to the end of the earthly ministry of Jesus from the Holy Gospel according to Matthew. Meaning today's gospel has special significance, as this is the image and teaching that Jesus is leaving with his disciples. Meaning this is what he really wants his disciples to keep with him as he sends them forth to then minister, to spread the good news. And what is this teaching that he leaves them with? And it's the image of the final judgment and the separation of the goats from the sheep. And this reality really speaks to the temptation, the struggle that we all have between moving towards secularism and away from God and moving towards our Lord and peace and serenity. And as we enter into this time before Christmas, that battle really comes to the forefront. Just last Friday, we celebrated, I would say, the greatest holiday of the secular calendar, Black Friday. Because our culture would tell us that we need to buy good things. Here's all the sales that we're going to offer you. Because your happiness and the happiness of others lies in the having of things, of material possessions. The newest electronics, the nicest clothes, and so on and so on. And over the next few weeks, it is really going to be thrown in our faces. And sadly, many of us, myself included, can oftentimes be tempted to fall for that lie. But my brothers and sisters, the reality is the greatest thing that we can give to another person is not a material reality. And I'm not saying don't get gifts for your loved ones. Those are nice. It's okay to do that. But we just can't forget or let them forget why this season is important, which is exactly what secularism and materialism do, is they downplay the reality of Advent and Christmas. Because the greatest gift that we can give to another person is love, the very gift of ourselves. And that is really what is highlighted in today's gospel with the Last Judgment and the separation of the sheep from the goats. And as Jesus is using this image, all the people back in the first century would really understand because they're around these kind of animals very often. But for some of us, we may not. So I wanted to highlight some of the qualities of them. Because what is a sheep? They're a very trusting creature. They entrust themselves to the shepherd for just about everything. He walks them to water. He walks them to green pastures, as we heard in the responsorial psalm today. He protects them when animals may come to try to harm them. And they, in turn, stand quietly and willingly when it is time for them to be sheared, symbolizing the call that you and I have to willingly give of ourselves for another person. Whereas goats, if you've ever come across them, are quarrelsome, fierce, they spit, they like to cause trouble, and they don't really listen to anyone. If you want to find out, just watch a few YouTube videos about goats and you can really get an insight into what kind of personalities they have. Because we are called to be sheep. Those who hear the voice of the shepherd and those who offer of their wool to clothe the naked. The life that we have now is not something that we can covet, something that we can hold, but something that is meant to be offered. In the same way that the gift of love that we have is not something that we seek to hold on to, but is something that must be given. And in a specific way, Christ is calling us to care for those who have no one else to care for them. Because notice in the images today that Christ uses, he doesn't rebuke the goats for things that they have done. You know, you did this and this and this wrong, but for things they did not do. Those sins of omission and not caring for those in need. Because how often do we drive past someone asking for money on the side of the road and immediately judge them, not taking into account the pain and suffering that they themselves most likely experience that has brought them to this place in their life? Do we even ask their name and offer to pray for them? How often do we forget about those in nursing homes or hospitals who may not have anyone to spend time with them or to write them letters during this time of year? How often do we think of criminals in jail maybe as lesser human beings deserving of all they get and never take the time to pray for them or visit them, to be a sign for them of hope? My brothers and sisters, this life is not fulfilled, nor is our happiness achieved by living a life for ourselves. It only comes by offering our life back to God and to our brothers and sisters, especially those in need. We must be like the sheep who patiently allow themselves to be sheared so that they clothe the naked, and not like the goats who fight back against their owners. We do all of this because, unlike our culture tells us, our humanity becomes fulfilled when we live a life for others. And so I challenge all of us, myself very much included, to seek and to care for those in our community who are in need of our love and support. To acknowledge the homeless as a human being, and if all you can do for them is ask them their name and promise them of prayers, do it. To take the time to visit those who are lonely and suffering. We have a nursing home just across the street. To bring hope, to write letters for those who are imprisoned, to remind them that they themselves are cared for. Because all of this will help us and others fulfill the calling of Christ. And one day, we should be counted among the sheep at the final judgment.